Tech for ID.
Tech for ID.
Tech for ID.
Technology for Indonesia.
Technology for Indonesia.
Technology for Indonesia.
Technology for everyone.
Technology for everyone.
Technology for everyone.
Okay.
Go.
Tech for ID.
Okay, Mas, start, Mas.
Okay. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another session of Tech Talk by Tech for ID. Technology for Indonesia, technology for everyone, with me as your host. Our topic for today was about something that has been talked about a lot. Maybe you were already using this technology, or the company you were working for were using this technology. Yes, it is about blockchain. Today's topic is about blockchain and privacy. And who will we be talk about this with? Please welcome Mr. Sanjeev Solanki, technological research team lead of Acronis.
Thank you for inviting. And
yes, it's very good to have you here with us, Mr. Sanjeev. We are going to talk about blockchain and everything related. But first of all, can we get a brief little introduction about yourself? What is it that you done in the industry, and what do you think about blockchain today?
okay, so I'm basically a researcher and a scientist with a wide range of experience in whether it's from semiconductor industry to hardware systems and devices to IT data center to software, and now specifically in the domain of privacy, security, and using tools like blockchain, which are becoming very promising especially in last 1 decade. So I work with Acronis, and I'm basically responsible for using these new generation tools and develop new prototypes for privacy and security of ID infrastructure.
Okay, so that's a brief introduction from Mr. Sanjeev. And I think we can just go straight into the question. The first question that we have here is, what is the definition of blockchain? And can you give us a brief explanation on how the whole system works?
Okay, the idea behind blockchain is to make distributed. So typically legacy applications, what we do is any transaction that happens, it is recorded in a register, and there will be one guy who will be maintaining that register. When we come to IT systems, it is the database which basically records anything you do, anything you do your machine, or any transaction that happens while you buy something online is being recorded with a timestamp in certain register we call database. So then came this idea of blockchain, which basically serve the purpose of distributing that ledger to not to one machine or one database, but to multiple machines. And they came up with a very innovative way to commit transactions in terms of block. And then they use this mathematical tool, what is called cryptography. So it sounds a bit mysterious, but this is one of the branch of mathematics that you use to convert piece of information into kind of unintelligible to human beings. So it's kind of random alphanumeric numbers, but basically they represent certain information. So when the transaction happened, the commit of the transaction is being processed through the process of hashing, which is part of cryptographic process. And then you engage it's not depending on a single person. It actually depends on more than one person or more than one system or nodes to approve or basically provide consent that, okay, this transaction did happen and we are okay with it. And here is the special chain or the alphanumeric number that represent this transaction, and they submit it, and then start the same process again for the next transaction. So it's called blockchain because it chains the block of transactions that happens over a long period of time. And the process of committing those transactions is depend on the huge number of entities, and it is based on the consent by majority of entities. And that's where I think more details comes in. Maybe I'll explain more in the successive questions.
So what you are saying here is that blockchain it's like a connection between a large number of computers. It's like a peer-to-peer connections where they trade in data that all those data meet. One transaction is counted as one block, and then there are a large number of blocks forming a chains that is referred to as blockchain. So is that correct?
Indeed, yes.
So is it different from the system of blockchain and how data is managed before blockchain, for example, SQL?
Oh yeah, indeed, because it is totally on the other side of it spectrum. Because when we talk about the SQL or even NoSQL database, they are centralized. There is one node, one PC, one server, and you deploy that database there. So whatever transactions happen, for example, e-commerce website, so there is a huge database behind. They may be using multiple nodes, but they are all hosting the same database on top. So all transaction is going into a same database, and it's in the same tables or multiple of tables, but within the same database. We call that process as centralized. In contrast to that, in blockchain, as you just mentioned about peer-to-peer, so there are a lot of nodes, and each node is it's peer-to-peer connected, so P2P connected to other node, and the transactions are distributed on all those nodes. So there is no central database, there is no central table that is being managed or controlled by any single database administrator. All these transactions are distributed on all the nodes, the P2P nodes, and then there is a consensus mechanism that involve a kind of cryptographic compute or mathematical formula computation using nodes, and whoever comes first in computing that cryptographic relationship, he succeeds in saying, okay, this transaction is correct, and I have the correct formula, and he submits that. So when there are more than 50% of nodes or people say that, okay, this is correct, and this is formula, then that transaction is committed. So it has two fundamentally different features from standard database like SQL. In SQL, nobody's controlling. So whatever is committed, it goes and settles there. And second thing is it's centralized. In case of blockchain, there is no centralized authority. Every transaction that is approved by so many entities only goes in. And once it goes in, it can't be removed. So there is a factor called immutability. In contrast, in database, if any value or transaction is recorded and you need to change, you can always change. So there is, because it's centralized and there is a database administrator, he can always go ahead and change that piece of information. So these are fundamentally different technologies.
Okay, so it's different from how SQL works and how Bitcoin works. But I also have another question. In a network of blockchain, is there is there one person that manages the network? Maybe another example is, for example, if I have a company and I have a blockchain network to act as a ledger of transactions, did another company who trades in cryptocurrency share my network of blockchain, or they have different network of blockchain compared to my network of blockchain? Is it a one giant network or different networks?
Or you can connect two different networks. So since it's peer-to-peer, it is not it's not a single control network. You can create your entity and connect to this, and I can create mine, and some other party can create theirs and connect to it. And you can set up your wallets, you can set up your transactions, set up your exchange, or even go ahead and create advanced apps, which we call the DApps, because DApps in the sense distributed apps, which performs more complex functions than just transaction. So as I mentioned before, I think key property of blockchain is that there is no single point of control. So in that sense, there is no single point of failure. And once it started a decade ago, I think back in 2008, 2009, this has been running nonstop. So one of the, I think the biggest advantage of blockchain system is that it never stops working. So it's always running. It's so difficult for it to fail. In comparison to the single control systems, which can be disrupted due to power failure or some other issues. And since they are central, if they fail, that there is no redundancy. If there is no redundancy, the service goes down. In case of blockchain, since you are connected with your network, I'm connected with my network. If one of us fails, so if my network fails, you will still be serving, or some other third party, they will still be serving. So that basically shows that there is no single entity or no single person in control of it. It's distributed and it's peer-to-peer connected. So if some of the nodes or some of the networks, part of network goes down, the whole network still runs well.
Okay, so I presume that there are many different networks. However, that network can also be connected to each other. Now then, let's talk about the risk and the challenges for those who use Bitcoin network. Is there risk and challenges for companies or individuals that utilize the blockchain network?
Oh yes, indeed. So one thing that is an advantage is at the same time is also disadvantage, because it's distributed and it's peer-to-peer connected. So it typically takes a lot more resource than centralized applications. So that is one of the disadvantage in terms of infrastructure deployment. So you need more infrastructure to deal with it. But to deal with it, there are more than one way you can use the blockchain network. So there's the public blockchain, there are private blockchains, there are permission blockchains, and then there are consortium blockchains. So a group of companies or entities come together to create their own blockchain. But still, the idea is to distribute the information and keep it not in a non-centralized way. So that eats up more resource. Second thing is in the absence of no central control. So maintaining and providing backups and guarantee of service is not easy. So if it's a public blockchain, you know that. So there are so many networks connected, so at least you can guarantee that service will be up. But if the application is an enterprise, when there are private or the permission blockchain, so to managing applications, blockchain applications, is it's not simple and straightforward as centralized applications. So these two are, I think, the typical disadvantage. Others are, if you look at the centralized applications or tools like database, they have been existing for decades, for many decades. And in comparison, if you look at the blockchains, they are hardly here for a decade, maybe 10, 11 years. And the applications on top of blockchain have just started being experimented. So in that way, it's fairly new. So the way we understand about the property characteristics and the implications of using database is non-existent still in case of blockchain based infrastructure out there. But I believe, having said that, I believe, but I know that there are so many efforts globally to address these issues and problems. And I think in coming years or maybe coming decade, there will be much better understanding of using blockchain as a backend for many more applications.
Yes, I also think that blockchain has come a long way since its inceptions. That it used to be how we create a democratic currency that is not controlled by the big banks. And at first, this cryptocurrency has it was dismissed as just a fool's dream, that it's unrealistic. But slowly it has gained traction. And that brings us into the next question. Is it possible for hackers to get into the blockchain system, and in what way that they can harm the network or the users, and how did they do it, and what is the way to to combat those threats?
Okay, yeah, blockchain infrastructure itself it's pretty secure and robust. So it is not easy to get into it because of its immutable feature. Once you commit something, it is not easy to change. So to change, you have to you either have to spend a huge amount of money and make transactions. So that path is not easy for anyone to follow. So typically, if you look at the last 5 years or 6 years of trend of any news about hacking and breaking into blockchain, it typically happened at the exchange level. So all these exchange services. Okay, I don't want to take the name, but there are so many globally distributed exchange that provide users or the retail users to subscribe and then start using or start buying cryptocurrencies or doing perhaps the other transactions. And they are typically hacked, and the currency they store in terms of the cryptographic hashes, and that gets stolen easily. So that is where is the weak point. And to address that, so there are efforts by some of the exchanges to make themselves distributed as well, or use some kind of other cryptography tool to guarantee that even if they get hacked, they can still be safe or protect their customer currency, which they hold in their wallets. But most of them are still following the traditional way of allowing user to register and maintain their account. So even though blockchain is well distributed, peer-to-peer connected, and it has a immutability feature which allows it to be hack-free, but these exchanges are not same, and they are, many of them still, I think most of them are still a kind of centralized entity, and they hold user credentials, and the hackers are the one who target these exchange, not the blockchain. So what is needed is basically to spend more efforts on the exchange side to improvise and come up with architecture which can deal with the single point of failure situation in crypto exchanges.
So I think it is safe to say that the blockchain system is pretty safe and secure, and also, but there are ways to improve that security by improving the infrastructure in which the transaction in the blockchain network is being utilized, is being used. By the way, Mr. Sanjeev, we already have questions from the chat. It's from Sean Marcus. Sean Marcus asked that, is it safe to hold your cryptocurrency in exchange, or is it safer using cold wallet?
Okay, so yeah, frankly, I'm no one to recommend what you do with your money. But from technical perspective, it depends on exchange. So normally it's advisable if you have money, so and you have translated that into cryptocurrency hashes, so you better keep a copy with you, because as I mentioned before, if the exchange got hacked, you may lose all your hashes, and if you don't have a copy, you may not be able to recover. So one of the advantage of blockchain system is that you are responsible for your money, crypto money. But one of the disadvantage of blockchain currency is that you are responsible for your money. So there is no bank which can provide you any guarantee or any insurance. So you are the sole person responsible for it. So yeah, make a backups, take a copies, and keep it separate from exchange.
I think the one advice that is important when investing is also to not put your eggs in one basket. I think there's a story of people who invest everything, all their assets, they gamble it on Bitcoin, and then when the price drops, he just lost everything. I think it is wise to make investment that is spread on all assets, on all types of investment. I think that's also it. So the next question is about applications of blockchain system in another industry. Is there a possibility that other industries or maybe healthcare system or government could they use the blockchain system on their on their system?
Oh yeah, I think that there are many.
I think that there's always room to improve for any system, including blockchain. So the next question is, there any risk, security risk when you engage in cryptocurrency trading? Like when you buy a Bitcoin, or there are many kinds of cryptocurrency, like Ethereum and Dogecoin and a number of it. Is there something that you have to look out, certain things that you have to know before you engage in cryptocurrency purchasing or something like that?
Yeah, I guess the first and the most important thing you need to know is that you can lose all your money. And I think that's most important thing. Otherwise, for retail investors, I don't think it matters. So as you mentioned that follow the rule of not to put all eggs in one basket. So if you really want to invest money in cryptocurrency, maybe do it at small scale. If you are a retail investor, if you got $1, maybe do it with 5 to 10 cents, but don't put whole dollar, because you can lose everything. And as I also mentioned previously, biggest problem with current cryptocurrency is that it's not stable. The variance is huge. It can still fluctuate by 98%, which makes it very unstable for for guys who have hard-earned money, and if they believe it's going uptrend and they invest money, they may realize in 6 months' time they're down, everything disappears. So that's one of the huge risks. Security, it depends on the, so to trade in as a retail, because you have to register through some of those exchange. So if that exchange get hacked and you do not have backup of your hashes, of your cryptocurrency, it'll be very difficult for you to recover that. So there is risk, there is a security risk. So I think anyone who is interested should keep those things in mind. So just play it from experimental purpose, not going in the way you do trading in the stocks and shares, where there are a lot of steps taken to guarantee about things. Even those things are not secure because they are linked to market risk, but those risks are well defined. So despite knowing those risks, if you still invest, it's your responsibility. In cryptocurrency, I think it's worse than that.
Okay, so next is still about privacy. Okay, is there any if when you go into a transaction in a blockchain, you only send, for example, I want to buy an Ethereum, so I just send money, and then I receive the Ethereum. So is there any way that my privacy will be compromised if I engage in the blockchain system? Is there any way that maybe someone can get into the system and also finding out where a person that is engaging in a transaction, or maybe in the ledgering system? Is there any way that my privacy will be compromised in any way?
Oh yes, indeed. So let's look back at the case just happened in US about this the colonial pipeline hack, and they paid ransom through Bitcoin, and then the FBI managed to recover 90% of money. So I guess I did not read in a lot of detail. I looked at one or two blogs, and especially by Wolfram, about how they track back the currency based on, I think, the time and the location of wallet that was used. So perhaps they had additionally some more information to really pinpoint to a specific cryptographic hash. So even though there was no name, there was no age, there was no picture, but they still managed to identify the cryptocurrency hashes, and managed to even recover those hashes back to their wallets. So yes, they are not perfectly random, and those who believe that blockchain provides absolute privacy, they are more or less wrong. Blockchain does not provide privacy because it's not the inbuilt feature. Privacy has to be done by other means. As you have to I think you have to enable other tools which guarantee privacy. Something should be done on the exchange level too. So how do they mitigate this risk of privacy of any exposure of one of those users, or the guys who registered for this account? So privacy is another domain. It's not part of blockchain. Some guys confuse privacy with actually immutability feature, that if your money is there, nobody can remove it. Okay, that's true. And since your name is not there, so people seems to believe that, okay, my money is there and nobody knows, so it's kind of private. But that's only two aspects of thing. But the way you put money is also linked through certain other application, and through that, I think that you can be mapped. And again, depending on the transaction, someone knows about when did you make transactions, so it is possible to identify you through mapping. So there is no such privacy, and no absolute privacy. Again, but going beyond the application of cryptocurrency transactions, to build up applications where user expect privacy, or use blockchain for other purpose. So there is these concepts like on-chain and on-chain computing, off-chain computing, and there are some efforts which have enabled additional layer of encryption. So if you really want to keep some PII, personal information, within blockchain, you can, but then you need to use the additional layer of encryptions on top of what exists today. Or the information that need to be dealt in a privacy preserving manner, you have to do it off-chain. So off-chain typically means that you are creating smart contract, but the actual processing of information will happen somewhere else, not on the blockchain. So in a more private environment. So but that's outside the blockchain. You're connected through blockchain to a secure environment, which is privacy preserving.
Okay, so that's very interesting. So next, Mr. Sanjeev, we have another question in the chat. It's from Nuriska Asfarida. Nuriska asked, what are the highest risks of blockchain?
Oh, blockchain has no risk. So because it's a blanket question, what are the highest risk of blockchain? So blockchain has no risk. Blockchain itself, it's just a peer-to-peer network. It provides you with no risk. The risk only comes when you think of applications. So how would you like to use it? If you want to use it for currency, so then there'll be one kind of risk. If you want to use it for the healthcare sector, there will be another kind of risk. If you're using it for supply chain, it will have a different kind of risk. So it depends on the application of blockchain. So the risk is risk change from that perspective.
And about the privacy issues, the data on the, I mean, I would imagine that you will not put your name or address or a picture of you in a blockchain exchange. I mean, let's say a cryptocurrency exchange, you just put your money, and I think it guarantees safety. But is the data available to public? Does the public have the option to see all the transactions on the blockchain, especially if you are a minor? Can you see such transaction back and forth? Because I imagine if a company uses a blockchain system, I think they will make sure to making sure that their blockchain network were private and no one outside the company can see it. But in the cryptocurrency is, can you take a peek at that data?
Oh, no, I don't think so. I think exchange, the cryptocurrency exchange by defaults are private, and they are not publicly available. It's only when the transactions are committed on blockchain, public blockchain network, then they are private. So anybody can go ahead and explore those committed transactions. But exchanges, I think by default are private. So that's why they are target for hackers, because the hackers know that they have a huge value and they're private. So they always target those exchange. Yeah, if they become public, if exchange become public, so definitely the privacy is completely gone. So I don't think those people gonna use, because then you don't need blockchain. If you're comfortable providing your name and the money and the time in a public domain, you actually do not need a blockchain. You can just go ahead and make normal transactions. So exchanges, yeah, so truly, no, they are not. They're not in public domain.
So I think there are public. You said that there are many types of blockchain. There's public blockchain, and there's also another blockchain. So public blockchain is meant for it to everyone can see what is the content on such network. Is it like that?
Yeah. So once those transactions are committed, so those hashes, they are available for public. So, and there are actually so many sites they provide the block explorer and the other explorer, so you can explore those committed blocks on public blockchains on E3 and all others. So, but otherwise, if I register to add through any exchange, that exchange is not public. The exchange is a private entity. So they may know my name, but they're not supposed to broadcast my name in blockchain.
Okay, so Mr. Sanjeev, there is one thing that I am curious. Is blockchain different than other peer-to-peer connections? Like, for example, there's a BitTorrent, and there's also LimeWire. That's from very long time ago. What is the difference between blockchain and other types of peer-to-peer connections? Between computers, users between users.
Yeah, I think P2P is a kind of network which blockchain infrastructure is based on, but then the similarity ends there, because blockchain has additionally a lot more things. So there's a consensus mechanism, so which is not there in peer-to-peer network. Then there is this immutable feature that once any transaction is committed, it can't be changed. That is not true in any general peer-to-peer network, because you can remove nodes, you can change nodes, everybody can delete their content. It's not in control through any consensus mechanism. So which makes blockchain very transparent. Peer-to-peer may not be transparent and may not be that available as well. Blockchain networks, once start floated into public, it remains available forever. So these are a fundamental difference. So even though blockchain is on the backbone of peer-to-peer network, but it has many advanced features which makes it immutable, transparent, and available to everybody.
Okay, so I think it works a little bit differently than a peer-to-peer system that has come to us before. So I think we have 10 more minutes, and I think we only have a few questions left. But the next is, could you suggest any good source to know about security and privacy issues in blockchain technology?
Okay. Oh yeah, one source that I used to look at was there is this site called Blockchain 101. Yeah, they have resources, blogs, and analyst reports. So when you read, you may not agree with all of them all the time, but it's a good resource, and they keep posting stuff. Beyond that is generic, so you can always search for looking for latest updates depending on where you're looking at. You're looking into market, or you're looking into enterprise applications, or you're looking into research done in universities. So for that, you have to trust the search engines, one of those private or non-private search engines. Yeah, but Blockchain 101 is, I think, on one side that I frequently go back and look for things. And they cover quite a bit. I think all kind of stuff, not just cryptocurrency, but the applications of blockchain in various other domains.
So there's, I think there's a lot of source to learn about blockchain. I think for starters, I actually Googled a bit about blockchain in Google, and there's already a lot of resource to learn about it. Maybe if you want to go in depth, maybe you can just go deeper into the Google search. Mr. Sanjeev, are you interested in mining for cryptocurrency? Because I see that it has been more popular today that people buy a PC with a very high, very high specifications, and then they just run it 24 hours, 7 week, and it's just sorting out transaction. And have you interested in having that kind of operations, cryptocurrency mining?
Oh, me, no. I see that as the waste of energy. It is so non-green. So I'm from the green school of thought. So, this is one part of this consensus mechanism, which eats a lot of energy. And I hope that the future iterations of blockchain or even cryptocurrency, they come up with something better, some better way of proof of something, which is not energy dependent, but something else. I don't have a solutions, but I think the proof of work and using humongous power to approve transaction is not the good way. Of two reasons. So the first is I already mentioned, like it's not green, so it's very non-green. And second is, if you dream of making a global currency, it should be using least amount of energy, and only then you can expect that the poorest of the poorest person be adopting that kind of currency. If a single transaction eats up so much of energy, you can think of creating an option for global billion or 7 or 8 billion people. So if it sticks to same path or what it is now, it may not be able to succeed. But I know that in research, I think there are a lot of new explorations. So we most likely will see something different in next 10 years than it is today. So yeah, but coming back to the question, am I going to mine? I'm not going to mine. So perhaps if I create that node, I'll be used for AI or machine learning purpose, but not for crypto mining.
So I think it's also very energy intensive, because you just run that computer for a very long time, for days and weeks and months even. And I cannot imagine how the electric bills will come out if in places that have such operations. So I think we have 5 more minutes before the end of our sessions. I think the last questions on my list will be about BlockStore Information. Can you tell us what is BlockStore Information and how does it work? How does it work in the blockchain system?
BlockStore. You mean in a block, then the information that is stored in a block?
So it's that simple. So it's just informations in the block that is going in the blockchain system.
Oh, okay. I mean, it's the transaction times, I think, and plus they have the if there was a private, if it's not a Genesis block, so there's a previous hash. They take up that. They take up the new parameters, which is times and the amount, and then they hash that again. So it generates a new hash, and then they post a new hash together with new details. So that's the next block, and then they continue for the next one. But the hashing it's mining, so that's where the huge amount of energy is needed, because if there are a million guys hashing, at least you need 500,000 more than 500,000 to agree on a same hash, to come to the same hash before it's committed. So that's where it is. Otherwise, block is a very simple piece of information. It's just a transaction information. So very small fields.
And about hash, is hash works like a bit in megabit and kilobyte? Is hash like a fraction of data? What is actually a hash?
So like we, okay, for hash is kind of alphanumeric digits. You see it's a long. So it depends on, for example, if it's 128 bit, so it's 128 bit long alphanumeric sequence of characters. And they use this algorithm called SHA. I think currently they use SHA2, and they do it twice. So in case of blockchain or Bitcoin, they do it twice. So they hash it once and then they hash it again. So it creates this alphanumeric character chain. If it's 128 bits, 128 bit. If it's 256, it's 256 bigger. If it's 1024 bits, it's much longer. So it's a small piece of information. I think in one block they attach many of them together because there is a block size limit. They try to fill up the block and then commit and then move to the next block. So hash is a small piece of information.
It's like a small piece of information, like similar to a byte into kilobyte and into megabyte. Like, just this is it. Just a small piece of information. So yes.
Yes, and I was just saying that even if you look at today, all the transactions that being committed on for example, Bitcoin, the whole data set is not huge. It's not in exabytes or petabytes. It's in gigabytes, I guess, or terabytes, maybe 18 terabytes.
I think
And it's been running for a decade, so it's not a huge amount of information.
You mean the whole blockchain system has been running for a decade?
Yeah, I mean, when it started back in 2009, so from now it's 2021. So it's been running and churning out hashes. So each hash is not that big, because even after 10, 11 years, the complete database, this distributed database is not huge. It's the total information is not in petabytes or exabytes. It's a small, comparatively small set of information. But everybody, it's replicated across all nodes, and all miners have it, and they have to process it. So it is massively replicated, but it's essentially a small set of information.
So I think that blockchain will have a bigger future than it is now today. That I think it will continue to grow as a system and as an idea. I think the cryptocurrency will also grow in the future. There may be even different ways to approach this. Do you think that? How do you think is the future of blockchain from today? Maybe years and decades later, do you think that it will still be there?
Well, that's a very difficult question to answer. Yep, I see it to be there in a decade time, but most likely not in the form that we see it today. So it will be changed. It will be tweaked. It will address a lot of issues. Those are there. So in terms of governance, in terms of regulations, in terms of more formal verifications, in terms of privacy, in terms of applications, whether it's currency applications or other kind of applications, in terms of scalability. So which is again one of the big issue, how to scale for distributed applications. So Bitcoin or Ethereum are not scalable, and they are trying to deal with that challenge. In terms of consensus mechanism, or mining, which eats up so much of energy. So there are a lot of questions. But the good thing is that so many people are actively looking into these problems. They are coming up new solutions day or months on. And we will see a new kind of implementation, which most likely will be able to deal with many of the problems that we face today. So it will be a new form of P2P based computing, or the cryptocurrency, or the other applications, and will not have the flaws, the kind of flaws that exist in current blockchain based applications.
So I think it's very unpredictable because we don't know what will happen in the future, because there might be new infrastructure on the IT system. Maybe there's even a new type of connection. So we will don't know if blockchain will still be there on, or maybe it will be there, but maybe in a different form, but still with the same ideas. I think that that this is very interesting, because blockchain is an idea, but there's still so many that can be talked about it. So Mr. Sanjeev, I think we have hit the 1 hour mark. So I think that is all for our session today. Mr. Sanjeev, thank you very much for agreeing to come to this session. It has been very fruitful. I think I learned a lot, and hopefully our viewers also learn a lot too. So Mr. Sanjeev, do you have anything to say to the viewers of Tech4ID?
Sure. First is thank you very much for inviting. I feel great to having discussed on a blockchain and blockchain applications, the currency or other applications. Yeah, but a piece of advice to all those who are especially currency enthusiasts. So just be careful, because it's even though it's 1 decade plus old, but it's still young in terms of long-term solutions to the currency problem. So if you want to play with it, play with a tiny amount of money. If you're not interested in currency and you want to look into applications, all other technology applications of blockchain, yeah, blockchain has a huge potential and also a lot of problems. So there is an opportunity to be innovative and develop new applications. So read on, look into what other researchers are working on, and think of new solutions. So it's a very wide area, and there are a lot of possibilities.
Okay, so there we have it, Mr. Sanjeev Solanki of Acronis. So thank you again, Mr. Sanjeev. So that is all for our session for today. So
thank you.
Yes, Mr. Sanjeev, as
Thank
we
you.
are here
Bye-bye.
saying in as we are here saying in Tech4ID, technology for Indonesia, technology for everyone. Goodbye, everyone. And also